I think needs no introduction. You guys have heard of Amazon. 1.5 million people, $1.5 trillion in market cap. But I learned something really interesting tonight for the first time, that you almost came to work for Fortune.
I did.
You want to share that story?
Well, I had, first of all, it's great to be here with all of you. I was telling Alan that I thought you were going to talk about the beef tornadoes. I was hoping we'll
get to that.
What are tornadoes? I know I almost, in between my first job and going to graduate school, when I was applying, I had this recruiter call me about Fortune magazine, and I had a lot of friends I'd worked with before who were there. I had a lot of respect for Time Inc. I got the offer, and I almost did the job instead of going to business school, and then I decided to go to graduate school.
So it's like Fortune, Amazon, Fortune, Amazon.
It was business school. But yeah.
You made a good decision.
No, just luck, total luck.
You got it right. I want to start by asking you the question that everybody in this room is going to be asked to address tonight, because this is where we really get value out of this dinner. Look at the year ahead. What do you see as the single biggest opportunity facing business and the single biggest risk facing business?
Well, of course, everything we think we know today may be different 3 months from now. So take this with a grain of salt. I would say that to me, I think the opportunity and risk is pretty similar in that there is this wildly transformative, disruptive technology in generative AI that you can't get through any conversation without talking about. And I think people, people were on this march pre-pandemic to modernize their technology. It's part of, I used to manage this AWS business, our cloud computing business, and people were on this march to modernize their technology to be able to have a lower cost structure and have better developer productivity and to innovate at a faster clip. And then the pandemic happened, and then we had this economy where everyone, most enterprises tried to figure out how they could save money in any way they could, ours included. And as a lot of the low-hanging fruit and cost optimization has attenuated over the last several months, and we're back to starting to invest, I just see companies really battling with the prioritization between, are they better off continuing with that modernization of their technology platform, or should they spend all their new engineering resources on generative AI? And in my opinion, you have to think, again, it's prioritization. Everyone will decide differently. I think you have to think about it in a balanced way, because to me, if you don't if you don't have your technology infrastructure foundation right, you are going to have a hard time being successful with generative AI. And actually, it's such a sure win to be able to modernize your technology and move to the cloud that, to me, it has a very predictable payback. And yet, at the same time, I think you would be foolish not to figure out how to use generative AI successfully. I think everyone is trying to figure out how to be successful in a cost-effective and high ROI way. And so I think that, to me, a lot of companies will end up deciding to take the sure, successful win of modernizing their technology platform and setting their foundation right, and then picking at least 1 or 2 generative AI initiatives where they can learn how to run it, they can learn how to be successful, they can figure out what you got to do to get the right ROI and the right customer experience for your business. But it's got to be a balance, in my opinion.
Do you think Davos has overdone the AI thing a bit?
I don't think Davos is unique to that.
Yeah.
I think it is so exciting, and people, and it's really, it has the chance to transform virtually every customer experience. We're building 60-ish applications right now.
Let me ask you about that, because yes, every conversation for the last 4 days has been about AI, and particularly generative AI. But when you talk to people about it, they generally talk about OpenAI and Microsoft. Maybe they talk about Google. Maybe they bring in Meta, but they don't talk about Amazon. Do you feel like you've missed or been behind the parade a little bit on this, or why are we not hearing Amazon in the same sentence?
I don't know who you're talking to, Al. not our customers, but I think that most of the conversation, in my opinion, on generative AI so far has really been at the application layer. So things like ChatGPT, which is, by the way, a really remarkable application. But the way that we think about AI is it has three layers of the stack, and all three are massive, and we're investing very heavily in all three. But at the bottom layer, if you're going to build your own large language models, you're going to have to train the models, and the key to training is compute, and the key to the compute is the chip in the compute. And to date, there's really been one GPU chip provider, and it's hard. Many of you probably know it's hard to get capacity right now, and people are wondering, what the cost structure is really going to be like. And so, about 5 years ago, we invested in building our own custom AI chips. And we have a chip that we've built for training called Trainium, and one that we built for inference called Inferentia. And we're on the second version of those chips, and they're going to be meaningfully more price performant than what you see elsewhere. And so, when you get into, I think customers who build models are starting to figure out that the cost equation is maybe a little bit different than they thought. And then the dirty little secret, if you have generative AI apps in production at scale, like we do in a bunch of areas like Alexa, is that almost all the cost ends up being in the inference. Take Alexa, you train periodically, but we have billions of predictions or inferences coming, every day. And so people are going to really care about that price performance. So that bottom layer is an area I think people are going to care about. And then at that middle layer, it's really for companies that don't want to build their own large language models. They want to use somebody else's and customize it with their own data. And we built a service called Bedrock there that does just that. It basically takes our own large language models, and then Anthropic's and Meta's with Llama 2 and Cohere and Stability AI. And it takes whatever large language models you think you want to use, you can customize it with your own data, not leak it back into the general model, and then have the same security and access control and features that you run in the platform. And that also, like what you're learning when you talk to companies, or if you have your own experience building generative AI apps, you realize that it's not going to be one model to rule the world. It's going to be lots of different models that are better at different things. And then, to try to get the quality that you need for your customers and your reputation at the cost structure and the latency you need for the customer experience, it's actually not simple. And so one of the attractive parts of something like Bedrock is you can move between models and between sizes of models to experiment and find the right experience. And and then there's that top layer, which are the applications. And there's ChatGPT. I think another really compelling application in the early days is a coding companion. And we launched this thing called months ago called Q that it writes code for you, it debugs the code, it tests the code, it does transformations from old versions of Java to the new versions, it looks at your data repositories and lets you answer questions. So all three layers of those stacks, that stack is important, and we're making big investments in all those areas, and I think it's still quite early days. But
you feel comfortable with where you are?
Look, it is so early. This is like 3 steps into a marathon, but our customers really like what we're building for them.
Well, let me ask you, in my house, in many of our houses, the first time we started talking to the furniture was Alexa, as you mentioned. So what is, how does Alexa fit in to this process?
Yeah, well, Alexa, like a number of different areas inside our company, is one of the many businesses that is building a significant large language model. And, Alexa has, you've used Alexa for lots of different things, but we're building a much more expansive large language model that is aimed to fulfill our broader vision, which has always been the vision for Alexa, which is to be, the world's best personal assistant.
So I want to talk to you. You've been in this job for 2 years now, right?
2.5.
2.5. Okay. So how would you? So you've learned a lot. You've experienced a lot. How would you say your leadership style is different than your predecessor? You can do this, Andy. Come on.
Well, I mean, that's a trick question, but look, I grew up at Amazon. I've been at Amazon for 26.5 years, and I've done so many different jobs there, and I've been lucky enough to work closely with Jeff. I worked directly for Jeff for 20 years. So I feel like I learned from somebody who's, arguably the most unusual business leader of our era. So, I'm lucky that way, but I do think that every era of business leadership, and I think everybody knows this in this room, is different. When I started the job, nobody really predicted that the pandemic would last that long, and Omicron would come, and the war in Ukraine would come, and the inflation. I mean, there's lots of things that happen throughout, and you have to just keep adjusting, and that's what we've tried to do as a team.
But now you have 2.5 years to look back, how is it different? Granted, anybody in the job would have changed, but how do you think the leadership at Amazon is different than it?
Well, I don't, you know, we have a very, we have a set of leadership principles. There's 16 leadership principles that we, carefully have crafted and recrafted over the years. I think the leadership principles are quite consistent. I think the leaders are very consistent culturally. It's just we have some different folks leading the businesses at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Can we, I could keep trying, but you probably don't want me to.
You got to decide how long you want to go on it.
Okay, let's see. Where can we go from there? One of the things that has come up in a number of conversations over the course of the last week is with everyone imagining these incredible options for using AI, there is a question about where does the compute power and where does the electricity come from to run all these massive applications? Amazon has been early and strong on sustainability, but how does this explosion in interest in complicated, massive compute power make you think about sustainability?
Well, I think I've been in the Fortune dinner, I think this is maybe my third or fourth year, and we always talk about how important the environment is and how critical it is. And like a lot of, we have this thing called the Climate Pledge where we've, pledged to be carbon zero by 2040. And for a company like ours, it's different than most technology companies. We're already well over 90% renewable energy now. We'll be 100% in 2025, but to get all the way there, when you have to ship as many products as we do with as many trucks and the packaging and all the buildings, it's quite difficult. And I think it's interesting what's happened with power. I think that a lot of the municipalities around the world underestimated how much power was required. In fact, several of them told us they just took our estimates and cut them by a third. They just didn't believe them. And that was during the pandemic, and that was before generative AI came about. And generative AI and these large language models are so power hungry that it's been an explosion in demand, and there's not enough energy right now. And so we're going to have the dual challenge as a group to find a lot more energy to satisfy what people want to do and what we can get done for society with generative AI. But we've got to do it in a renewable way, in a carbon neutral or zero way. It can't be going back to coal. So that will require a lot of development. We'll have to be part of that.
So what's the next big thing to come from Amazon? I mean, is it health? You made this investment in One Medical. What's the thing that excites you that could be a fourth pillar for Amazon?
Well, there are so many things that I'm excited about. This is not a soup question. I think that I'm very bullish on what we're doing with Prime Video. I think the combination of the customer experience, the content we build ourselves, the sports that we have, and then all of our third-party media partners who are part of our channels program. We're trying to build the place that is the best selection of streaming video. And I think that customers, the growth that we've had there, the growth in engagement, the growth in customers, we have a marketplace there. I'm very bullish about that business and how it's progressing. I also think, there's still 400 to 500 million households around the world that don't have broadband connectivity. And so they can't do the things we take for granted. They can't do education online. They can't do their jobs online. They can't watch entertainment. They can't buy. And so we're pursuing this low Earth orbit satellite that we call Kuiper, that we think will have a real meaningful impact on a lot of people around the world, particularly in rural areas. That I also think it's a big capital investment, but I think it will help a lot of people and it will be a good business as well.
When will you start to roll that out?
We'll start to roll it out this year. We did our first two big end-to-end test satellites in October that really performed very well. So there's a lot of demand for that. There's demand on the government and the enterprise side, and consumers are excited about it too.
Healthcare, there are a lot of people curious about where you're going in healthcare.
I feel like when my parents tell me that they didn't have color TV, I just kind of roll my eyes. Do like my kids, roll their eyes when I said we didn't have the internet when I was growing up, or mobile phones. But I think that my kids will not believe what the healthcare experience was for us. Like the fact that if you want to go see a doctor, you got to make an appointment 3 or 4 weeks out. You got to drive 20 minutes and park. You have to, wait in the waiting room for 15 minutes. Then they put you in an exam room. You got to wait 10 minutes for the doctor. Doctor sees you for 10 minutes, and you drive 20 minutes to the pharmacy. I mean, that experience is just kind of nutty, and that will completely go away with the way the future of healthcare is. And so One Medical is a different way of doing primary care. It has an amazing digital interface. You can chat with doctors. You can do video conferences. You can make appointments same day or next day. You can get into specialists same day or next day. All the reservations are integrated. And then if whatever pharmaceutical needs you have, they're connected to Amazon Pharmacy and to a bunch of others that you just get sent to your house within a day. So it's a very different experience. And pharmacy for us was not a big extension. We've been asked by customers for so long to do that. And that business has grown really quickly, and I think will be big as well. But we're really trying to get at changing the core healthcare experience, starting in the US, which I think has not been a happy place for a lot of people.
We're just about out of time here, but you've got this massive antitrust case against you from the FTC. I mean, anything to that? I'm trying to make it easy for you.
Well, what I would say to that is I am aware of it. And
here, I'll ask you another question. Have you watched the video of Bill Gates being deposed in the 1990s in his antitrust case?
No, I haven't.
You haven't? You should.
No. Okay. Yeah.
I would strongly recommend.
I just say, I think all I can say about that is I think they're wrong on the facts and the law, and I think that will be borne out over time. And I think in general we have to be careful in Western countries, not to kill innovation and not, there's a lot of consolidation in various industries. And if we only, have strong regulations in Western countries, you'll leave the playing field open in other spots you don't mean to.
Is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have?
Not that I'm aware of.
Good.
If I knew what beef tornadoes
You're going to find out in just a minute. Go ahead, take your seat. Thank you for doing this. It was great talking to you.